The National League Championship Series continues today. Game 2 between the Braves and Dodgers. Coverage begins 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific only on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. All right, it is now time for Four Things First. Collection of things we saw, we loved, and Brandon, you loved the supercharger Justin Herbert last night.
Yeah, a lot of talk about Drew Brees and the Saints this morning, but you got to show this kid some love. This kid is playing amazing. A few things that I look for in a young quarterback, because I had so many of them. I want to see their feet in the pocket. I want to see how fast they get back to their point. You can go back to Peyton Manning. He was the best at getting back. He was slow, but he was so fast in the pocket. And this kid is tremendous at getting back to his 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drops. Also, his decision-making. First, coming into this game, he had 3 interceptions. Last night, he had 4 touchdowns and 0 INTs. And his playmaking ability outside of the pocket. So when you look at this kid, I mean, the upside is tremendous. They found their quarterback.
Yep, Chargers saw that in the draft. Catching some rays.
Look, great catch, slightly dangerous. So what are you going to do, right? I'm going to argue that every time baseball incorporates water into the sport, it works. Whether Barry Bonds hitting the ball out to the bay, Arizona's got that pool. It used to be a jacuzzi. Maybe it's a pool now. And the Rays have the manta rays swimming around. Maybe you just put a pool around and you turn it into like American Ninja Warrior or Wipeout, so that when you jump over, there's a big splash. Just an idea. It's for free and it would guarantee to work.
These are the best Wilds ideas. That is such a good take.
No, it's not. Then he's got to change and dry off. It's too much. The King's Court.
Oh, it's a lot of strategy.
Yeah, so credit to Richard Jefferson for putting these two side by side. But this is great LeBron James petty on his IG story, which I think has 6,200 posts in the last 24 hours. You have Giannis reading the New York Times in his private jet about back-to-back MVPs, and then you have, Jenna, that's not a real picture. That's a Photoshop or a cartoonized image, just so you know. You have LeBron next to him reading a paper about his finals. Yeah, Jenna, that's not a real picture, I promise you. He doesn't have the ring yet. There's 4 rings on his fingers. It's not a real picture. I knew that would confuse you, Jenna. Okay. This is great petty by LeBron James. I'm absolutely here for it. We all love Giannis. And listen, life's funny sometimes, because an Antetokounmpo did get a ring this year. It just happened to be Giannis's brother who plays with LeBron. Giannis, so the Antetokounmpo family got a ring, just not the ring a lot of people thought was going to happen. And LeBron reminding folks who the real MVP is. Love it.
I'm not great with those Photoshops. That was great, Nick. I love that. All right, among the hundreds of celebrities and athletes congratulating LeBron James on his 4th ring, perhaps none more creative at all than Tom Brady. Because the only way to spin the 4th quarter blunder of all blunders, the gaffe of all gaffe, if you're Tom Brady, is if LeBron James wins his 4th ring. Not his 3rd, not his 5th, not JaVale McGee, not J.R. Smith. It had to be LeBron. It had to be 4. So from one washed-up old goat with hardware to another, hang on, from LeBrady to LeBron, he was wishing him a congratulations. What, Nick? What did I not?
I just wanted you to know. No, I just wanted to make this is a Photoshop. This is a Photoshop, Jenna. I just wanted to make sure you understood. I just wanted to make sure you knew. That's all. That is a Photoshop. That is a Photoshop.
All right. Let's talk some NFC East now. Coming into Sunday, so Fox Bet had the Cowboys holding the best odds to win the NFC East. But with Dak Prescott now lost for the season, and with backup quarterback Andy Dalton in, Fox Bet still has the Cowboys with the best odds to win the NFC East. How about that? That is faith in Andy Dalton. So, Brandon, you still buying the Cowboys as the favorites to win the division with Dalton under center?
I am. I mean, this is why you go out and you get this type of quarterback to back up your QB1. I think around 5-6 years ago, we saw this shift in teams' approach and getting quarterbacks that can come in and can stabilize the situation. A lot of quarterbacks were going down, and when that happened, then everything just broke loose. So I really like Andy Dalton in this situation. You got to think about who he's surrounded by. You got 3 number one wide receivers. You got Lamb, you got Gallup, you got Cooper, and you can also throw Schultz in there, who's a really good pass-catching tight end. And then you got Zeke in a running game. A quarterback's best friend is the running game. So I'm obviously, like everyone else, nervous about the defensive situation, but I don't need you guys to go out there and pick the ball off. I don't need you guys to go out there and put a fence up when you get in the red zone. I don't need you guys to be lights out on 3rd down. What I need is you guys to have great effort. I need you guys to be able to tackle and don't bust simple coverages. We're talking about fundamentals. We're talking about cover 3. We're talking about quarters. We're talking about man. We're talking about do you know who you have? If they can do that, they can easily run away with this division because on the other side, you know, Philly, and this is a rhetorical question. Don't answer it, Jenna, but who are their receivers? Can you name their number 1, number 2 wide receivers? No, none of us can, and that is the problem. Carson Wentz is more than capable, but his guys around him are not. Now, when Alshon Jeffrey gets back, when he gets back, that's a different story.
Brandon, hold on. The point you make about the Cowboys supporting cast is all valid, and Andy Dalton is maybe, you know, a more than serviceable backup quarterback. But let's be honest here. You saying, and I agree with you, that the Cowboys could run away with this division, that is an indictment on Philly. That is an indictment on Philly, and that is an indictment on Carson Wentz as well, correct? Like, it's not just that the Cowboys are so great even without Dak. It's that Philly is that much of a disaster as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. It's going to go down. Like, you guys are we're forced to answer this question. It's going to go down to the very last games of the season. We know that. This is a mess of a division. But the reality is there's no one surrounding Carson Wentz. And I don't know when Alshon Jeffrey's going to come back. And I don't know how long it's going to take for him to get into mid-season form. When you look at Dallas, they have everything they need on the offensive side. Now, obviously, they're banged up on the offensive line, and defensively, they gotta change some things. But if they can just get the fundamentals down on defense, they'll be okay. So Andy Dalton is more than capable, and there's an argument that Andy Dalton, when you look at how Carson Wentz is playing right now, up and down all season, every single quarter, every single drive, that Andy Dalton is the best quarterback in this division.
Okay, there you go. You got there. I was trying to hold on real quick, Jen. I'm sorry. I was trying to walk Brandon to that, and he finally said it. That right there is a hell of a take. And I look at it and I say, I don't know that he's wrong. I was texting with our buddy Eric Mangini this weekend because Mangini, like Jenna and Wilds and Brandon and Ketta, who produces the show, were all trolling me about the Chiefs' loss. I hear from folks I haven't heard from in months because the Chiefs haven't lost in months. So I mean, it's just my phone just keeps binging every time Derek Carr completes a pass. And when I was texting with Mangini, because, you know, he's always the last one to believe in the young quarterbacks. I texted him, the young quarterback that the whole world fell in love with that might have been premature, Jenna, I think it might have been Carson Wentz. I think we all loved those 13 games he played his second year, and since then, he has been nothing like that player. And while I understand the Eagles once again are dealing with injuries on the offensive line and the receiving corps, I get all of that. If you are a great quarterback in this league, you have to be playing better than Carson Wentz has played. We're now through a third of the season for them. They haven't had a brutal schedule. For them to be the underdogs to a Dallas team with the worst defense in football, think about that, Jenna. The Cowboys have the worst defense in the NFL, and they just lost their quarterback for the season. And Philly is still not the favorites in the division. That is also about Carson Wentz, Jenna.
Well, I was just going to say, we could make this about Carson Wentz, and a big portion of it is, but you can't overlook Andy Dalton. He's not just a a placeholder. He's not just some, random veteran that you brought in that's just going to hopefully hold down the fort while you pray that everything else works and you really press the run game. I mean, Andy Dalton didn't fall that far off, and I think we talked a lot about that when you brought him in. He's a fully capable veteran who can come in, knows the offense probably, could, be some semblance of a mentor if that team needed one. I think you might have something in Andy Dalton, despite what you don't have right now in Carson Wentz. Brandon, does that make sense?
It does make sense, but you got to look at the last 4 years in Cincy. Underachievers, they just look bad. Andy didn't look great, but he's more than capable, Jenna. You're 100% right there. I mean, this guy was in the Pro Bowl. I played in the Pro Bowl with him, so I had an opportunity to catch balls from him. He's super smart. And playing for Coach Mark Trustman in Chicago was the first time I realized that the quarterback position is almost all mental. So, that's why I don't like when you, Nick, when you crush the Tom Brady's of the world and the Drew Brees of the world and the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world, because they have so much experience, and you're looking at the physical, and the quarterback position is about how much do you know? Do you know if it's cover 3? Do you know if it's disguised? Do you know what they're rolling to post-snap? So that's what Andy Dalton gives you, is a guy that understands when the ball is hiked, where do I go? Do I go to number 1? Do I go to number 2? Or do I go to my check down? Do I get there fast? Do you understand that? And Jenna, I am excited to see what Andy Dalton does. I love what they're doing on the offensive side. And he has so many playmakers that he can get the ball to.
Oh, I'll go.
Go ahead, Wilds. I know.
So, Wilds, what you got? Wilds?
I'm just hanging out. I was thinking about Andy Dalton. I think there's a narrative out there that Andy Dalton is washed, and he's not. He's sneaky young. He's going to be 33 at the end of the month. He's a full year younger than Drake, and he's 13 months to the day older than Russell Wilson. So unless you're saying Russell Wilson's going to be washed in 13 months, and Andy Dalton's not washed.
Wait.
Now, I think that because what are you saying, oh my God, for? Why are you oh my God-ing me? Go ahead, Nick. Why are you oh my God-ing me?
I don't think people think Andy Dalton's washed because he's too old. It's because he's not very good. Like, he's a good backup quarterback. No, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you finish your point.
So what happened? I'll give you two stats. I'll give you two stats. He went 50 and 26. They had those 11 and 5 years, and AJ Green's, they're doing great. And then he went 20 and 34. Did he fall off the cliff in his late 20s? What happened? Or did he just not have the weapons in Cincinnati? I'd argue that he just didn't have the weapons. If you're saying he's not washed, he didn't forget how to play quarterback, and he's physically fine. He hurt his thumb a few times. That's it. So now that he has the weapons, I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, okay, well, see, that's I feel like it's going, hold on real quick, Brandon. I just feel like we're taking it two steps too far. I think he's better than the vast majority of backup quarterbacks. I think he will be serviceable with the excellent weapons the Cowboys have. But there is a reason that when when Cincinnati got rid of him, that there wasn't a single team in the league that was like, you know what? Let's make him our starter. The Bears were like, bring in Nick Foles. The Colts were like, hey, old man Phillip Rivers, come on down. Yeah, but that was a more complex reason. There were stupid off the field concerns and legitimate injury concerns. And Dalton ain't gonna be Cam. The Patriots also, by the way, passed on Dalton. When we now know their other options were Hoyer and Stidham, which would have been a total disaster. So I feel like I'm being boxed in to crush Dalton where I don't want to. I think the Cowboys will win the division. But the idea that Andy Dalton is this diamond in the rough because he's still young. Yeah, he's young and mediocre. Okay, that's fine. It's probably enough to win the NFC East. But if they win the NFC East, it's not because Dalton's great. It's because he's serviceable. He's not going to be Nathan Peterman as a backup. But we know we know what Andy Dalton is and what he isn't. Like, that just because he's now going to be wearing a Cowboys uniform doesn't change that.
Well, there is a lot to the environment. There is a lot to who's surrounding you. Time will tell. There's this narrative out there that every head coach, every executive, every GM is smart. Sometimes they make stupid decisions. You look at Cam Newton being on the open market for as long as he was. Andy Dalton, no one wants to touch him. Well, let's see what he does with all these guys around him in this offense.
Sure.
All right, speaking of quarterbacks who need to step up moving forward, Nick, one Patrick Mahomes. It's what happens when you start out that good. First things first.